everyone, and welcome to my video all about EGX Raised and my experience there, which is mainly going to be focused around, well, when it comes to gaming, I'd say it's my one true love, Total War Warhammer. Me and my sibling arrived roughly 2 hours early to EGX Raised, and it was in this big, beautiful, really old building with a really nice flooring, though it was breaking down a wee bit here and there, and really nice sort of statues, a really sort of rustic feel to the building, so that was really, really nice. But because we were there super early, we waited outside for about an hour, then we went up, got our wristbands and all that, then we were met with this. For about an hour we were stuck there, bored out our minds in this queue. Now this is the only downfall I had. At this point we were bored out our minds, we were knackered, we really didn't get any sleep travelling down the night before, so me and my sibling were absolutely shattered. Which was a wee bit annoying, but it was still a really, really good day, but we just couldn't enjoy it to the full extent because we were really, really tired. There was lots of games on, all really nice and good, but we're going to start talking about the main event. And yeah, when I found the Total War Warhammer booth, I'd seen it on the map, so I knew we were coming up to it, so I was like, yay, yay, yay! And I even got so excited I shook the camera, I was like mad, like a little madman. Initially went in, couldn't help myself of jumping on a computer and trying out the game straight away. Now, this was a wee bit weird. I can't remember the last time I didn't have full control over my body. It's hard to describe. Just before I started playing, the level had loaded up, I was just about to start the gameplay, and my arms were shaking like mad. I'm not sure if it was adrenaline, I'm not sure if I was that excited because a dream of mine had literally come true and I was about to get to play it. I do not know. But this shaking, this sort of excitement, this sort of weird feeling did not go away the whole time I was playing Total War Warhammer, and to be honest, it was a great feeling, it was a scary feeling, but to be honest I hope it doesn't stay when I get the game in the comfort of my own home. I'm guessing it might a wee bit, but then it'll drip away as I get used to it. But I'm guessing I was just that excited, but I was also really tired, so that might have played a large factor. Now on to the actual gameplay itself. I wanted to respect CA as much as I could, so I did not actually record me gaming, as I've seen some people were doing. I've seen other people with cameras going on there. I wanted to be as respectful as I can and restrict them and record nothing actually from inside their area. So what I've done instead is I've made some very, very bad, like my paint skills are very bad, but this is just sort of to describe you, because I was very impressed with these battles, and I've seen them before, but let me just say, playing them gives you a totally different view on that battle. Right, and we're going to start off with Seagold. Now here is my little basic terrain drawing. Now you see those circles with the lines through it, they were like impassable sort of mountain hills that were sort of impassable, couldn't go through them. And the little triangles are to represent forests. There was a lot more forest on this map than that, it's just those are the ones I feel that were important. Now here you see where I deployed and where the enemy deployed and was coming from. Quite simple so far. I'd like to note here as well, because I did watch a lot of people play this battle. I played both battles myself, and then I spent a lot of time watching other people play the battles, and I noticed a lot of people used that two hills up to the north as a choke point, and it often turned out quite disastrous because they started a lot closer, they didn't have as much time to do range damage, and I can't remember if I ever seen anyone win using that strategy, but I just thought I'd point that out. I decided to go for the more... Well, I hadn't watched anyone. I was the first. I think I was actually the first person in the Total War Warhammer area playing a battle. At least that day, of course. And so there we go. I was sitting there. I thought I'd go deploy the back, give my artillery maximum time to rain death upon the enemy. I also deployed my vanguard troops in the form of some skirmisher cav. I think it was 1 outrider and 2 pistolier units in the forest to the north, just there. And my plan was, once again, just to skirmish them as much as possible, dwindle their numbers as much as possible before the main battle engagement sort of thing, harass, all that jazz. And then the blue circle you see off to the right, which was tucked away in the corner, was where I was keeping my ace in the hole in the form of my Reichsguard and a unit of Demigryph Knights. The enemy advanced between that choke point, and I started harassing them for all that it was worth with those Outstriders and Pistoliers, and my initial thought on their damage output was quite lackluster, but I didn't really get much chance to sort of test why, because I didn't really get that much chance to focus on them this battle. They were shooting at heavily armoured troops in the form of, I think it was Black Knights barded with lances, so they're already a heavily armoured opponent, and they were shooting through woods, so that probably reduced their damage output by quite a bit. But as I said, I didn't have time to test, and also I didn't have time to scroll over and try and see if they were actually doing a lot of damage. They just weren't killing yet, so I don't really know what their damage output was like. I just didn't see men falling yet from them. And the reason why I didn't get much time, as we move on here, you see it was like an explosion of units all over the place. As a person that's played Total War since Shogun, this caught me very off guard. They chased my Outriders Pistoliers away back deeper into the forest, as was to be expected, but then didn't keep chasing them because they knew they couldn't catch them. And they then had units split up, go here, there and everywhere. It took all my concentration and all my reserves. I was throwing units, going, ah crap, throw this unit over here, this one over there, that one over there. And I was actually very surprised that I managed to keep all their cavalry off my artillery. And it was just thanks to me keeping... I had a good strong front line of spearmen. Then I kept everything else in reserve. I was going to use this. I was expecting the stereotypical Total War charge straight down the line and then try and outflank each other. But the AI went completely different way about it. It tried to outflank, and that's basically all it did. So it caught me completely off guard. My spearmen standing ready to absorb the charge was kind of useless and redundant, and they just got failed all over the place to try and stop me getting outflanked everywhere. And then the same with all the reserve troops, such as my swordsmen, my great swords, and all that sort of stuff. And I was just sort of throwing them about. Their units you actually see getting around behind me were their sort of cav units, their knights and that sort of thing. So at this point I was like, oh my words. And as I said, I was very, very tired, but the AI, I would say, had the upper hand on me. And as you see here, I've changed it to purple for where we're engaged. And you see, it was literally, this map was quite large. And so normally people complain that they find it hard to split their concentration between multiple areas. For example, where you've got the main battle going on over here, but then you've got your skirmisher cav round over on the other side of the map skirming something, and you've got to split your concentration. Well, this was like that times 100. I had little battles going on everywhere. And I mean everywhere. I brought my skirmisher cav back to the edge of that forest and started raining down death onto the rear of my enemies, but I didn't have the chance to sort of pay attention to how much damage they were doing, because I was having to go around and make sure everything was okay. That little blob in the middle you see unengaged was actually Balthazar Gelt, my legendary lord, and the artillery, which I was actually shocked I managed to keep out of combat. This is when I brought out my ace in the hole, my units that I'd kept hidden in the corner of the map, and I brought them round, and it was quite devastating. The Reich's Guard were quite nice. They were like a typical, very good late game Total War shop cav unit. They charged in, they dealt damage, good, awesome. But those Demigriff Knights, they were the shop cav variant with a lance instead of the halberd, and oh my word, there was a tiny unit size, but that charge, it devastated Vampire Count units in the rear, especially their basic ones like skeletons and zombies. That initial charge destroyed like half the unit, and then they were disintegrating from the Vampire Count crumble, not ability, sort of, instead of breaking, they crumble, and they were crumbling like mad. So this Demigriff Knight unit was able to charge around, clearing up the battlefield, and because it was a lot of little skirmishes, it was able to jump from one to the other, and it was, oh yeah boy, my ace in the hole was something special. It was the man of the match. Not all my units survived. The Demigriffs got there too late to sort of save them all, so I was losing numbers, but I was getting reinforcements then from the ones that did survive to help in other combats. That's when the Vampire Counts got their reinforcements. They got a flanking army coming in from each side. And first thing I did was I moved my Pistoliers up, back deep into that forest, and I just sort of tried to skirm them, got into fighting, and that whole area just sort of became a 50-50 battle of they were doing just as well as me, and in the end I think I had one unit of Pistoliers left that was nearly dead when that battle ended, but it wasn't thanks to them, it was thanks to me winning elsewhere and causing them to crumble. As for at the back, behind my artillery, the Vampire Counts actually won, and then they got a good charge onto my artillery units, and then that main blob coming in from the left came down and caused quite a large battle in between the other choke points coming in from that direction. So the battle ended up looking something like this. Which you see up in the north in the forest, they had their reinforcements, and it was like everyone was running around trying to catch the other player off guard kind of thing. I didn't really have much time to concentrate up there, just sort of let the basic skirmish mode do its thing, which if I had time to actually pay attention up there, I probably wouldn't have lost any. I would have probably been able to hold them off and keep them away, but not lose units, because as I said, those Pistoliers didn't kill the units, it was the crumbling at the end of the battle. What did win the battle is, you see that, right, let me explain the blue blobs. I actually managed to save one unit of blue blob of artillery, which is the little blue blob beside the big purple. The big purple beside the little blue blob was most of my artillery, my legendary lord, I think my great swords were in there, and I can't remember what units. Oh yeah, it was the Cav. Their Black Knights and stuff like that. Their faster stuff that went and got around behind me, and then cleared up my crossbows and a few units of spearmen I sent back to help them. What made me win this battle here, though, was another charge from the Demigryph Knights, which is the blue blob you see there. I seen their lord, and he was right on the edge at the back of that combat in the middle of casting the spell, so I thought, right, he was already half damaged, and I sent those Demigryphs charging right into his rear. They sent him flying, he was on the floor, and he got mauled whilst he was on the floor by like a load of Demigryphs and some great swords. And he didn't go down straight away, he went down fighting, but oh yeah boy, he got nuked good and hard. Just a hammer and anvil of the great swords, and the Demigryphs was too much for him. And then once he was gone, they started to crumble and crumble and crumble, and it actually left me enough forces left for this to be a decisive victory, which I was really surprised about, and I was really quite happy, especially because the AI caught me so off guard. It was so skilled. I doubt most humans could perform actions as fast as it did. As I said, the army just sort of exploded with units going here, there and everywhere all at once, and they were outflanking, they were over here. I was knackered, and it was really hard to concentrate, and it took all my skill to try and actually stop them from getting their own way. And for AI, I thought that was very, very impressive. And what makes it even more impressive is after both my battles, I managed to get Craig from CA and ask him what difficulty was it on, because in older builds you could actually see it gave you the option between easy and hard, and he was saying for this one he's pretty sure it just defaults to normal. So considering that was the normal AI, I thought that was very, very impressive. Now let's go on to the second battle. Now here, I've not put as much detail into the map because it was mainly an open barren. The only terrain that really mattered is that sort of hill there with a sort of impassable cliff face, which is what the wee bit coming out of it of the lines. So that's the hill on the right. Then the main hill the enemy was camped on. And for this battle, I was the aggressor, playing as the Vampire Counts against the Orcs. And I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the main objective was to kill the 4 shamans, and I think there was 3 war bosses as well or something, but you didn't have to kill them. So that's where I spawned, the big blue circle down the bottom, and that's where they spawn. And straight away, right off the bat, I started moving forward because I was getting pounded by their Doom Divers and their artillery, and plus I needed to be the aggressor, and straight away they got a reinforcement army from each flank. Now the army on the right was a very, very fast army. I think it was mainly Goblin Wolf Cav with bow, so very, very fast, very, very nimble. I think there was a war boss in there as well, and they just bam, were on me within seconds. The army over to the left was a slower, more ponderous army. I think there was some Black Orcs in there. I think there was a wee bit Boar Boy Cav. I think it was mainly Orcs, as far as I can recall. And I was actually quite proud with how I reacted to this Cav Archer Frey. I was moving up in a good sort of formation, mainly quite blobbed, and I managed to pull my faster units and just quickly pounce out of nowhere onto these fast skirmisher archer units. It was my wolves and my bats, so they were very fast. Pounced on them out of nowhere and held them just long enough, because they tried to disengage, but that was just long enough for me to pull out some slower units like zombies, skeletons, get them surrounded, and then there was nothing that could really be done to keep those units alive. So that was the army on the right taken care of. The army on the left was still marching up, trying to get together with the main army. And you may notice I've got a lot of blue ball obs at the back now. These were units that I sort of, I wouldn't say mismicroed, more sort of they were really slow. I was using them to engage those cav and stuff like that, and they just didn't have time to catch up with my main army. Whereas the fast units managed to catch up pretty ably. Then I started attacking the enemy about the same time as their armies were merging, and as you can see there was a few skirmishes on the right. I think those were like a couple of zombie units engaging, just trying to target some spearmen they sent out chasing off, because I was trying to find some weak points to expose their archers and their doom divers with my fast cav, but they managed to, I was sort of manoeuvring, trying to go, right, if I move over here, will they chase me here, then I can nip round and get those archers. I was trying to do stuff like that, but the AI just was too good for that. It just wouldn't let me. I did manage to finally create one opening using all my little fast units, but then they just summoned the band moon there and I had to pull back, otherwise I'd lose the units. And I wanted to make sure I kept all my fast units alive, because they'd be very important later on in the game, and they actually did turn out to be very, very important. So I knew I wasn't getting away with it. I had to pull back, and those were zombies I sent to Tar Pit to make sure I could get those fast units sort of away. And so we had sort of minor skirmishes on the right now, and the main battle was about to be engaged. Once again, I actually did this battle first, so this was the first sort of experience I've seen of the enemy sort of breaking apart, trying to get good flanks and stuff and all that going on. So once again the enemy did sort of that. The main battle in the middle was more like the older stereotypical Total War gameplay, where you'd have your main line meet their main line, and it was mainly a mass sort of skeleton and the rest of my zombies and stuff like that, and a sort of big giant tar pit blob trying to hold up the enemy. The blue you see the black at the back of my army is the fast units. I managed to pull them back, and there's more skirmishes going on here, there and everywhere where the AI is trying to outflank, and I've sent units to meet them, and I've been trying to outflank, and the AI sent units to meet them. But now I've managed to get all the enemy units in combat. Only ones outside of combat is their ranged. But the ranged, oh yeah boy, it has taken a huge toll on my army. So, I now have my fast units. I sent them around and I cleaned up their doom divers, their archers, and like the Black Knights with barding and lances. Oh yeah boy, they charged a unit of archers, goblin archers. That unit of goblin archers was gone in seconds. So you may think there that the battle's actually starting to look quite good, because I just done a quite good strike there on their ranged troops and all that. But you're forgetting, think back to the melee. They've got stuff like black orcs and all that in there, which is a unit I was actually very scared of. And most of my army was zombies, skeletons. The main battle was starting to look not very good. It was not going in my favour. The balance of power was slowly slipping away from me. So then it sort of looked like this once I mopped up their archers. Actually, I probably showed you that earlier. Right, on to the next one. What I then did, instead of just charging my fast units in the rear, I summoned 2 units of skeletons on sort of like the rear at each sort of flank of this big giant blob melee, and then had them charge in, which helped a lot. And then I used the fast units to seek out, like homing missiles, those shamans I needed to defeat, because I thought I'm going to lose this, because, well, I'm going to lose this if I don't get the objective kind of thing. I need to go for the objective victory, was my sort of thought process. But once I'd managed to snipe those shamans, the battle started to look like this. I had very little units left. Most of my units were gone. All my fragile units were gone, like the wolves now and the felbats. But I was really glad I managed to keep them alive right until the end, when I really needed them. And what was it? I had a few skeletons left. I think I had one unit of Graveguard, Manfred, and I managed to kill all the enemy shamans. And basically all that was left was a single unit of Black Orcs fighting to the death, and I had them surrounded and the battle was mine. But this one was a Pyrrhic victory. So there we go, those were the two battles. I was, as I said earlier, I was extremely impressed with this AI. I was not expecting it to break apart and do so much at once. It was always seeking out weaknesses. It was always keeping me on my toes. I did not feel safe for a second. The battle speeds, when one unit was fighting another unit, for example, I feel the battles were actually slower. But because the AI was keeping me on my feet, I was constantly having to do things. I was constantly having to put plans into motion and constantly having to react to the AI. I had a lot more to do. It wasn't as much of a main battle and then maybe an odd skirmish around it, or you'd start pushing on this flank and you'd envelop the enemy. There was nothing like, well, there was a wee bit in this second battle, but not as much in the first battle at all. So the battle itself, from a gameplay perspective, felt a lot faster. But the actual speed which units fought each other and killed each other and caused each other to rout was definitely a lot slower, or at least it felt a lot slower to me. Okay, now what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, the magic from these battles. I didn't really cover the magic because it's hard to remember on such a scale as this, apart from those couple of spells that I cast to raise the skeletons, because that was quite a big point. Because if I didn't do that, I'd have probably needed to send the other units, the fast units, into the rear just to try and support, but instead I was able to send them on hunter killer missions. The magic, I felt, was quite simple for me when I was using Manfred, because I'm quite familiar with his spells from the tabletop. I've played with them and against them on the tabletop, and Vampire Counts in general, they all use the same sort of spells. He doesn't have anything unique spell wise, really. And yeah, the Manfred, I thought that was quite simple for me, because I was like, right, I know roughly what this spell does, quickly use it. Yep, I did what I thought. But when I was playing as Gel, I'm not familiar with the Lure of Metal that well, and so I found that I could obviously pause and look at the magic journal type thing they've got, the encyclopedia, but my mind was racing and concentrating on the battle. The last thing I wanted to do was open up this encyclopedia, so I felt that I was getting to the point, I was like, uh-oh, like over there's in real deep trouble. Quickly cast anything or anything over there. Just doesn't matter what it is, just try and help over there. And that's sort of what I did with Gel. And it wasn't really that effective, but for Manfred, the spells were really, really powerful. It was, when used at the right time, just to tip the balance, it had a really powerful effect. But if you didn't use the right spell and it wasn't the right time, it did next to nothing. Which once lead me to spell, the one spell I was really disappointed with was the Invocation of the Heck. It was basically useless when it's such a huge spell in the tabletop, because in the tabletop it's what allows like the units like the zombies and the skeletons to be this sort of endless tar pit, because what's the difference between a zombie and a Skaven slave, really? This is not much point wise, is the fact that you can bring these zombies back so easily, which makes them such more effective at being a tar pit than a Skaven slave. So yeah, I was really a wee bit disappointed with that spell, but they have said that this build is an older one and they're planning to buff magic a wee bit, and it has been buffed a wee bit. So we'll wait and see on that one. Now, towards the CA staff themselves, they were brilliant. They were very nice. I got to speak to Craig for a wee bit. I got to speak to Al, the Hatman Mickham, for a wee bit, who actually called me the guy from Vermintide. I've forgotten his name already. It's been ages since I played Vermintide. I need to play it again at some point. But the Witch Hunter from that, he called me that. And Charlotte, who was really nice as well. Love the shirt. Yep, I got a nice shirt, which is the grey one with the eagle Deathclaw on it, which was really quite nice. So yeah, the staff were really nice. The other thing I wanted to mention just real quickly is I got this lovely little booklet. Lovely little booklet. And it's just got this sort of those, what are they called, legendary lord cards or abilities or something that were on the forum or the wiki. It had mainly just them with a few wee like Slayer guides at the back, and I should have really took photos, but I'm just sort of scrolling through showing you these at the moment that I recorded whilst I was there, but I probably should have just took photos instead. So yeah, I really love that little booklet. That is definitely going to be added, kept safely and added to my physical copy collection, sort of, so to speak, when it gets here. There we go. I don't think we've got much else to talk about. Let me just take a look at my notes. Yeah, the battles were partially scripted AI-wise. That was because they were quest battles. Now, yes, that means the AI will behave slightly different when you're playing a custom battle or you're playing on the campaign map, not in the quest battle. But I don't read into that too much. For me, that's more scenario specific. For example, those cav archers that charged me right at the beginning, I wouldn't be surprised if instead when you were playing them on the campaign they pulled back, formed up with their army and sort of screened their army instead, or done something like that. But apart from like little changes like that, I don't expect it to be very, very different. If this was actually just a custom battle using the regular AI, I expect the regular AI to be at least as competent in battles as these quest AIs. I know they have a lot more to handle and a lot more to think about, and it's not as a unique situation, so they're not able to fine tune it as much, but they obviously will spend a lot more time on the main AI than they would just a little single battle AI. So I'm expecting it to be at least as good as the AI we've seen here and got to fight against. See, oh yeah, something else I wanted to mention. I was watching other people play a lot because the battles were very, very fast. I didn't really have time to pay attention to a lot of smaller details, and I noticed when I was watching other people I did have time to watch these smaller details. And a few of the things I noticed is the artillery. I didn't notice this when I was playing, but when I was watching other people playing, it actually shows you the real arc that artillery unit is going to fire. In older Total Wars, it'd always show you an arc, but it was the same for every piece of artillery. It was not really the real arc. It'd normally be higher than it. But with this, it actually showed you the real arc. So when you had the mortars from the Seagold battle, it actually showed you the really high arc. The cannons was almost direct, and the rocket battery was sort of in the middle of the two. So I thought that was really great. I was able to see right from, well, I wasn't in the battle. In the battle, I was checking when my artillery was fired. It wasn't hitting my front line. But I can see in the future now It'll be very simple for me just to check that and see, oh yep, it's going to miss my line, I'm fine. Or, can I shoot over this wall? Am I going to hit my own wall? Am I going to damage that build? It'll be very easy from the get-go, so I love that. It's just a little subtle change that going to make a big difference to artillery and how competently you can use it without actually having to do a lot to change the game implementation-wise. Another thing I noticed is a lot of people play from the tactical map. And I mean a lot of people. It could have just been people reacting to the AI and the explosion of units, as I describe it. Because I can certainly see the advantages of playing the game from that perspective, because you can see everything at once. That was sort of my main problem when I was doing the battle. It was because I was looking down at the minimap going, oh Jesus, there's a little red square there, what's that? What's this? And I was having to react constantly and couldn't keep up. Well, it felt like I couldn't keep up, but I managed to keep my arty safe, so must have done something right. So yeah, I can definitely see huge advantages from doing that there. So I wonder if that was just a lot of people play that way, or if it was people reacting and using the tactical map as a way to keep up. And after seeing that, I thought, right, I don't really want to use the tactical map more often, but it might be something we need to do to keep up with the AI if it is going to be like this good. Especially when you're up against a very fast army. The Vampire Counts I was playing against was a sort of mix of fast and slow, and the Orcs was mainly slow, just had that one like fast attack from the Wolf Cav. So it was quite strange in that way. Also, another thing I thought weird is I can't remember how many people I seen win, but I know I seen a hell of a lot of people lose, and I seen a lot of them just give up halfway through and sort of GG out or rage quit, depending on how I really looked. And not all these people were people that looked like they were new to the game. A lot of them looked like they were quite competent, had played Total War before, and had a good grasp of what they were supposed to be doing. Because I've seen some very nice strategies, using those choke points between those two mountains, for example, I described earlier. Using that strategy, I've seen a lot of people doing that quite effectively until they got flanked, lost their artillery, completely surrounded and swarmed. So I found that actually quite surprising. I managed both my victories, if I'm quite honest. I feel like I managed to scrape them out. Even the one that was decisive, I felt like I won it just. If it wasn't for my strategy with keeping my best unit, those Demigryph Knights, completely hidden from the AI and only going sort of like, blam, look what I've got, haha, you're already all engaged, you don't have much of an answer to this. If it wasn't for the fact of that single unit, I think I would have probably have lost that battle, never mind the decisive victory. So, I can't remember where I was going with that. Yeah, I was talking about how a lot of people lost and how I barely won, but I can't remember where I was going to go with that. Oh well, so yeah, that's what I take away from this. I was very, very impressed with the AI. I was very, very impressed with the game. My excitement levels were through the roof. I was shaking. It was an awesome experience, and I've been talking about this for 40 minutes now. I have no idea what I'm going to use as video footage for most of this. Well, most of it will be the battles, but that'll be the fine and dandy. And music, I'm going to have to go on to my... I can't remember what it's called. Epidemic Sounds. I'm going to have to go on to that, see if I can find some nice music for all. So I hope you've all enjoyed this. Hope you've enjoyed listening, whether you be a cult member or not. I love yous all. Thanks all for watching. See yous all next time. Bye-bye.